Welcome to the Just Jim radio show. We're here today to be with you. Thank you for listening, for being a part of who we are. Just Jim is here to offer inspiration, information, a little bit of fun, some awarenesses that might be able to open some windows or some doors, or have you might see your life a little bit differently and live it a little bit more fully. Why Just Jim? Well, I'm Jim Toole. I'm actually pastor of Sarasota Center of Light, Reverend Jim, and about a year and a half ago, I started saying to people, what should I call you? And I said, well, Just Jim, Just Jim. And I started writing that on the board for my classes. And when the radio show came about, I said, that's a great title for this radio show because I want to bring the kind of information and inspiration that just makes a difference for people. So we're here to do that with you and for you. We do that in different ways. Conversations, questions and answers. And today in this show, we're going to be doing that in an interview. Interview with Gary Halpern's here to join us. He is someone who I've known for many years, an amazing man. His classes and workshops and books have taught thousands of people how to practice yoga and meditation. Certified professional level Kripalu Yoga and meditation teacher. And has, done so much to establish who he is, not just as a yoga teacher or as an author, et cetera, but he was a resident at the Kripalu Yoga Center, an ashram in Lenox, Massachusetts for 3 years and taught meditation privately since 1994 there and in Costa Rica and other resorts and spas. His meditation clients include CEOs, political leaders, MDs, people of a higher nature in that sense in our world and society. And in Sarasota, Gary's clients have included members of the Longboat Key Club and Resort and Sarasota Bar Association, the Sarasota Orchestra, Ringling Art and Design, a lot of different realtors and employees in the county and different centers and places. He's offered Rosemary and Yoga Libre and Prana Yoga, Garden of the Heart, Mandala, Yoga Shala, Sarasota Center of Light. He's taught in so many different places and for so long. And if you get a chance to meet Gary or see him, you'll feel him in a really gentle and yet clear way. And I so appreciate him being here. He has authored some books, Feeling Better Now, Meditation and Stress Reduction and Relaxation, the Relaxation Meditation Method, Happier in 15 Minutes a Day, and is the creator of Feel Better Now Yoga DVD. Graduated from Amherst College and served in the Peace Corps in the Dominican Republic. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you, Jim. It's nice to be here. Thanks for having me on.
It's a mouthful there going through those bios, and it doesn't, I know who you are and I see your background, but it is so much more who we are, and you are such a genuine and real soul that I know that I've seen for a very long time in my life have an effect on many people, and I'm so very grateful that you're here.
Well, I'm happy to talk to you today, and I appreciate the kind words.
You're welcome. Absolutely. Humble as usual. So tell me about Kripalu Yoga. Different than another. What is the Kripalu Yoga, and how is that? How did you get involved in that? What is that all about for you?
Okay, well, great. Well, as you said, I was in the Peace Corps in the Dominican Republic. I came back and didn't really know what I wanted to do next, and people were asking me, family and friends, well, what are you going to do? What do you want to do? I ended up going to Kripalu Yoga Center in Lenox, Massachusetts. I literally had no idea what a yoga class was, what a yoga class looked like. I went there and immediately I felt like, oh, well, this is something that interests me. This feels right. This is exercise, but non-competitive exercise. This is about going at your own pace, doing things in a way that feels right for you, turning inward, learning about balance and compassion and love. And it was a different way than I had been brought up. Very much in my family, it was about outer achievement, succeeding in the way that society might expect you to succeed. And this was a way where I saw, well, this is a different way of living. This is an Eastern form of thinking. So right away, I was attracted to it. I was there as a guest for a couple weeks. I went back for work exchange, and then I eventually moved in because Kripalu at the time was a yoga ashram. It's about 300 students who work together, practice selfless service together, and we would bring in guests for yoga and meditation retreats. So I lived there for 2.5 years, and that's where I was trained as a Kripalu yoga teacher and also as a meditation teacher.
Wow. I love hearing a story like that, Gary. I mean, I've known you as a person and seen you do what you do, and yet to hear you say that you came up in a way that was guided by both your parents, your family, the way you lived, to live in a way that is sort of success driven or driven in that manner, and then to have an event like this, a visit to an ashram, shift the way that you see things and really literally, and we say these words, change your life in a really different direction, and like initiate or awaken within you really your soul on a really deep level to be something different than you have before. That's amazing.
Yeah, I was very fortunate to have found Kripalu at the time that I did, because I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And I didn't really, I wanted to serve, I wanted to be of service, but I didn't want to do it from an office. I didn't want to do a traditional lifestyle. And so the ashram afforded me an opportunity to learn about myself, to work with like-minded people, but then I also got professional training so that when I left the ashram, I was able to go out, and I've established a meditation and yoga career as a teacher, but also as an author. And just to go back, you had also asked me what makes Kripalu Yoga different than other forms of yoga. Most yoga, when we talk about yoga in the United States, is hatha yoga, physical yoga, the yoga of movement and breathing, and there are many forms of hatha yoga. What Kripalu Yoga emphasizes is using the yoga as a form of meditation so that we are practicing mindfulness as we're doing the yoga. It's also about listening to your own body, going at your own pace, doing the yoga postures in a way that works for you. So often people talk about, yoga could be difficult. You need to be flexible. I can't do yoga because I'm too tight. Well, Kripalu Yoga is not about being flexible when you start. It's about getting more flexible as you move on.
And I saw recently a video that you made with your daughter doing the yoga, speaking of pace and developing their own personal style through the yoga itself. I was interested in watching that beautiful expression of how it can benefit even younger people in the world. And speaking of younger people, speaking of the benefits, what are some of the benefits of Kripalu Yoga in this sort of inward-looking and meditative style of yoga that you facilitate and help teach people?
Right. Well, any form of hatha yoga is going to improve your balance and your strength, your flexibility, and help tone your body. What Kripalu Yoga is also designed to do is to enhance relaxation, increase stress reduction, and also just give you the tools to look at yourself, to practice being present, to accept yourself moment by moment. So we talk about Kripalu Yoga being on the mat, but we also talk about Kripalu Yoga being off the mat. So when we practice yoga, often thoughts can come up, negative thoughts, self-rejection type thoughts like, oh, well, that person is better at this than me, or I'm not flexible enough to do yoga. And when we go off the mat, we can use the same techniques to notice when we're having those types of self-judgmental thoughts and then come back to the process itself, the process on the mat of doing the yoga postures or out in the world, to come back to yourself and say, you know what, those are negative thoughts, but I'm going to focus on what I'm doing right now in this moment.
And the beauty of the blending, because we're not just physical and we are emotional, mental, spiritual beings, where we have a consciousness and awareness that we participate in. This is bringing both the opportunity on the mat to be in the postures that assist us physiologically, and then in the meditative or focused awareness to bring more balance and harmony to our emotions, to our thoughts, to our way of being or thinking or functioning within our world. What a beautiful integrative process, bringing sort of a part of who we are in the world and a part of who we are of the world together, and have us live a more fulfilling and a more aware life. That's beautiful.
Yeah, one thing we say about Kripalu Yoga is that Kripalu Yoga is not about learning to stand on your head. It's about learning how to stand on your own 2 feet. And that kind of...
That's great. That's great. Well, we're in the middle of this process we're going through. It's arrived, and we're kind of working through it, and we're kind of working our way out of it as best we possibly can. This pandemic and virus event that's going on. How can using Kripalu Yoga, help people during this time as they're making their way through this process?
Well, what I've noticed students during this crisis, during this time, is that they need shorter periods of yoga. They don't really want to get into sort of an hour-long class, that maybe 15 minutes a day is what they're looking for. The great thing, or one of the great things about Kripalu Yoga, is that the postures are basic. Postures are done at a moderate level or a slow level. It can be slightly vigorous, but it's never going to be an aerobic experience. So generally, we're doing postures that a regular, normal person can do. As long as you could walk for 20 minutes and sit on the floor for 10 minutes, you're going to be able to do a full Kripalu Yoga class. And what we want to do is know that during this difficult period, the simple practices can be the best practices. So that can simply mean focusing on one posture for a few moments, holding a simple posture for a few moments. And another tenet of Kripalu Yoga is once you've learned the basics, well, then you can sort of let go and do what we call a meditation in motion, so that we flow from one posture to the next without planning what's going to come next. So you're living in the moment for real at that point. So you might find yourself in yoga postures, or you might find yourself in other positions. And we use our breath and an awareness to move through that kind of sequence. So anybody who's listening, who's done any form of yoga, is trained in any particular type of yoga, you can try this, what we call stage 3 Kripalu Yoga, where you simply close your eyes, stand for a moment, and then let whatever happens, happens. Follow your internal energies. And for most people, that's a very relaxing way to be on a yoga mat. And then again, you can take that off the mat. So if there's a moment in time where you're like, well, what am I going to do next with my life? I'm stressed, I'm worried. Well, what do I need to do, or what do I want to do right now? Really ask yourself. That might mean taking a walk, might mean calling a friend, might mean just simply having some water, taking a shower. But we start from the inside out, really asking yourself that deep question. Well, what do I want to do right now?
Well, it's interesting. I just did a show on accessing inspiration and intuition, and embodying inspiration in whatever way that feels right as your intuition. And so you're talking about intuitively moving, almost freestyle, but in alignment with your own being that you've been able to become familiar with, and therefore be carried from one posture to another, or to be opened into a different expression that is who you are, or where you're coming from in that moment. How appropriate is that for how we are being in this process of redefining our world, redefining our individual worlds and the world around us? And we can use that basis of touching into and trusting the flow of our own intuition and what we can do next, or how we can make a difference in following. I said in the last show, the fluid flow of freedom, having that move through us that way. This sounds like a very freeing process of being able to be who you really are in the moment, whether it is on a mat or whether it is off the mat. That's wonderful. You have something, could you describe a simple posture of some kind that people could use right now that may not be familiar? I know there's ways to